You'll make this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Good evening. Welcome into Greenie Sports Cards Live. If we're coming to you, that means it must be Tuesday night. My name is Jeremy Levine, the man about town here in Cleveland, Ohio. I'll be joined shortly by the man himself, Greenie, Steve Greenberg of Greenie Sports Cards. And we get to do this every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, coming to you with hobby news, interviews, exclusive content, and lots of pretty cool stuff. We've got an interesting show for you tonight. Speaking of content, we're going to get to check in with Tyler Danburg, who is the voice of Scarlett Gray Radio down at The Ohio State University. He also has spent the summer working with the Lake County Captains, doing the middle innings there. And we've got a really cool replay of Travis Bazzana's first home run in the major leagues, the #1 draft pick over there by the Cleveland Guardians, playing it in Lake County. Tyler happened to be on that call shortly after we caught up with him. So very cool stuff there. And then we're going to check in with Jesse Gibson of Sports Cards Nonsense. Jesse's been all over lately. He's been out at the National here in Cleveland. He went out to Fanatics Fest in New York. We've got a lot to talk about on those lines, and some really cool stuff. A programming note for everybody. This is the world's first multi-stream broadcast for the hobby industry, combined with a live auction. And our live auction tonight is moving over to Whatnot. We're going to do that for the first time here on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock with Alex. We are not abandoning eBay. We are just expanding the reach of our show here. We're going to jump over to Whatnot at 9 o'clock, so you can join Alex over there. He's got all kinds of cards at the ready, of course, baseball, basketball, football. He's got some wrestling. He's got some soccer. He's got some pop culture cards. So join him over at Whatnot with Greenie Sports Cards, and check that out at 9 o'clock when we're finishing up here. And we're really excited to check that out, new platform, and see how that goes for Whatnot. And we'll continue to expand the broadcast and the production and all that as we learn and grow, which is very exciting stuff. So again, talking to Tyler Danburg tonight, Jesse Gibson with Sports Cards Nonsense, and of course, Greenie himself, who we'll bring in here and check in with Steve Greenberg of Greenie Sports Cards. Greenie, what's going on?
Hey, Jeremy, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. We get to do this again, as we have almost every Tuesday, or we have every Tuesday since late January, and we've got to do some pretty cool stuff along the way.
Yeah, and something new again tonight with Whatnot, which, we've been talking about for a while, and then we talked to Chris at the National and decided that this was the perfect time to jump into that, the second half of the year after the National. And, like you said, not abandoning eBay, just expanding, right? So Whatnot tonight, eBay on Thursdays, and what we decide to do in between, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, very cool stuff. We've been we're very fortunate to have an extraordinary auctioneer himself with Alex, and He's done a bang up job on eBay. He's going to get used to the Whatnot platform, and really it's an interactive show. What we do here on the first hour and then over to Alex, it works because you guys tell us what you want to see, what you want to talk about, what kind of cards you want to see, and what kind of content. And we're very fortunate tonight to be joined, as I said earlier, by Jesse Gibson, who's been all over the country of late, coming here to join us in Cleveland for the National. I'm really excited to talk about Fanatics Fest and kind of the feedback from somebody who was there. And
their videos were unbelievable. Like, I mean, and yeah, I can't wait to get his perspective. I mean, these were some of the videos that I watched, and pretty interesting. And man, some of the celebrities that were walking around there.
Yeah, it's what an amazing summer so far. You know, we heard from Coach Greg Williams last week in his comment that when he was out at the National, he's been to the Super Bowl, he's been to NBA All-Star weekends. He's never seen anything like the National itself, which is an awesome experience. And of course, Fanatics Fest, a little bit of a different experience, but the star power was out in full force.
Yeah, no question. I mean, not only sports. I mean, there was, musicians there, and artists, and the different sports. I mean, while in Cleveland at the National, a lot of the mainstream sports, but not as many wrestling or UFC, and they were really prominent at Fanatics Fest.
Very cool stuff. So we're going to learn more about that tonight. Let's talk about a couple upcoming shows as well. Of course, you're going to be back in Medina with the Medina County Collectors Fair coming up at the end of September. Talk about that a little bit. This will be the second edition, the fall edition, in partnership with Operation Fandom.
Yeah, we have some interesting things going on with them. We're going to have some special guests as well. But we decided to move it to Saturday, Sunday instead of Friday, Saturday, but take advantage of Friday night with a trade night preview night from 7 to 10 p.m. And people can come to that. It's free from 7 to 10. But what we're borrowing from our friends at Shipshawana is, if you want to come in at 6 o'clock, there is a charge to come in at 6, but that will guarantee you that you can bring a showcase in, and then you can also get a table. But you're still welcome to come at 7 p.m. for free, and I'm sure there'll still be spaces available. And, it should be a good night that Friday night. And then, of course, the event Saturday and Sunday. And, we know that our friend Kenny Rhoda will be out there Saturday and helping us out. And we'll talk to him about that next week. But yeah, there's going to be some other special guests that will be coming soon. And pop culture and sports cards collide. I mean, what's not to like about that?
Yeah, it was a very, very cool event. The first time out back in April, you had people walking around in costume and cosplay, and sports fans and all kinds of equipment and memorabilia. So very cool stuff. We want to get moving and jump into our interview with Tyler Danburg and hear from him out at the National, and share that Travis Pizzana call that you'll hear there, which right place, right time for Tyler to be able to make that call for the first ever home run of the #1 overall pick this year. We're going to run that, and then we're going to check in live with Jesse Gibson of Sports Cards Nonsense.
We're here at the 44th National Sports Collectors Convention at the IX Center in Cleveland, Ohio. This is Jeremy Levine reporting for Greenie Sports Cards, Greenie Sports Cards Live. We're actually here with Tyler Danburg, currently a student at The Ohio State University. But, of course, we had a chance to talk to your dad, who's Vice President of Communications for the Cleveland Guardians. Tyler, no doubt that was an inspiration between your grandfather, your father, trying to get into the game and be around the game. What does that mean to you to be a part of that third generation?
It means the world. I mean, just such a special family to be a part of, and super grateful to have two great role models in my life, my father Curtis and my grandfather Rick. Those are two role models in my life. In addition to my grandfather Don Strainer, those three people have really molded me into the human that I am. And definitely with my grandfather, a lot of what he has brought to the table at Mentor High School football games has helped turn me into the broadcaster that I hope to be one day.
Absolutely, and already are. Has a tremendous amount of experience to date. Currently a student, as I said, at The Ohio State University, about a semester or so away from graduation, but you've been a part of the broadcast team there. Talk about your experience at The Ohio State University and what you've been able to do there and what that's going to do to accelerate you forward.
So I'm a broadcaster for Scarlett Gray Sports Radio, the student radio home of Ohio State Athletics. We cover 13 sports on radio. And we also, as students at Ohio State, we get to call games on Big Ten Plus, which is the streaming service of Big Ten Network. So when I was coming out of high school at Fairview High School in the Cleveland area, I knew that the Big Ten was a place where I wanted to be because there are a lot of sports at all these different Big Ten schools, and students get to be broadcasters for marquee events, which I thought was just such a special opportunity. So Ohio State affords us 36 varsity sports to choose from to get the broadcast, which is really cool. And for a lot of the sports, Scarlett and Gray Sports Radio is the flagship station for a bunch of these Ohio State sports. We all know about the football and basketball programs and how elevated they are and how impressive they are. They're always going to be competing for national titles, but there are so many other sports that are also competing for national championships, and I am just so pumped, and we are so blessed to help tell those stories.
What's a signature moment that you've had broadcasting so far for the Buckeyes? What sticks out on any of those sports? There was a moment, a play or a victory. What sticks out in your mind?
I'll give you three. 2022 Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta. We were calling it from the high end zone in the right side of Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Marvin Harrison Jr. catches the first touchdown of the ball game, and unfortunately it doesn't go Ohio State's way in the end, but that was such a special day. In Minneapolis, we got to call the WCHA Final Face-Off, which is the Final Four for the Women's Hockey Conference that Ohio State Women's Hockey, reigning national champions, playing. Their star, Sophie Jakes, who's currently in the PWHL, she scored a game-tying goal to force overtime and complete a comeback. And then freshman year as well, a guy by the name of Colton Bauer for Ohio State. He was a third baseman. He had hit a walk-off two-run home run to beat Youngstown State. It was like 11:30. We had been rained out for about an hour. It was 35 degrees. I think snow was starting to fall down. Those three were probably some of my favorites to be with so many great people as well.
Very cool. It painted a very vivid picture as one needs to do in broadcasting. You're going to transition a little bit, doing some work with the Lake County Captains, I believe, this summer. What does that look like for you?
So I've got the privilege to be with my guy, Logan Petoskey. He is awesome, by the way. Logan is the play-by-play broadcaster and media relations assistant for the Captains. So I have been assisting him this year as the broadcast and media relations intern. He calls the play-by-play for innings 1 through 3. Then 6 through 9, I do play-by-play for innings 4 and 5. And then I join him on color for the rest of the game. And we do the media relations, so we handle all the game notes, we handle all the player and coach interview requests. And for those that want to get out to the Lake County Captains game, it's really cool because it's minor league baseball and it's major league fun. Now, Travis Bazzana, the number one pick, is going to be coming this week on Tuesday night, which is going to be really special.
And walk number 3 on the day. 9-5 Captains. Worcester sets at the shoulders and throws. Bazzana hammers it deep right field. This ball is history. Home run number 1 for draft pick number 1. And it's a grand slam. You can't script this any better.
The team is on track to be one of the best teams in franchise history. They have the third most wins at this point in the season in its history of the franchise since 2003. So it's a great product on the field, and it is a fantastic culture off the field as well.
It's going to be awesome. Make sure to check out the Lake County Captains. Tyler, you've got the Buckeyes on your resume. You'll have Lake County Captains. What is the goal from here once you graduate from The Ohio State University?
The long-term goal would to be eventually a play-by-play broadcaster for a professional sports team or a D1 school on radio, and to also do play-by-play on a network level for TV. Now, that's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of perseverance. So that is definitely a long-term goal. We'll see what happens and what the future has in store. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty after you graduate college. and it's nerve-wracking, but it's also exciting. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
It's very, very exciting. So we'll leave you with an OH.
IL.
Go Buckeyes. Keep an eye out for and an ear out for Tyler Danburg here in the future. He's got a very, very bright future ahead of him. And Tyler, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That kid's got it.
How about that timing too? He does the middle innings for the Lake County Captains, inning 4 and 5, and he just happened to be on the call when the number 1 overall pick hits his first home run for a grand slam. That's pretty cool.
That is. He will be calling games on a professional level at some point.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed talking with Tyler. I think I connected with him on a visceral level. I know what it's like, certainly, to be a third generation media member in Cleveland, Ohio. Those are really big shoes to fill with his dad, Curtis, who we mentioned is the vice president of communications for the Cleveland Guardians. And of course, his grandfather, Rick, was the PA announcer for Menor football for 50 years before he retired. So great family, great name. He's got big shoes to fill, but he's well on his way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I simultaneously love and hate some nonsense. Really love it when it's in the sports cards world and when we're telling jokes. Love that kind of nonsense. But these guys have a really, really cool show, Sports Cards Nonsense, between Mike Gio and Jesse. They get to do that, I believe, Mondays and Thursdays. It streams their podcast. We have them on the Odyssey platform as well. So really, really, really grateful that Jesse is able to join us tonight. We're going to welcome him in. Jesse Gibson, a.k.a. Sports Boy, the Sports Boy on Instagram, of course. Jesse, thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely, Jeremy, Greenie, nice to be had. Thank you so much for asking.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Let's.
I reached out to you after watching your videos at Fanatics and was like, dude, hysterical, but especially the Dana White one. I mean, it was.
Listen, that Dana White one. That's the only way I got out of the doghouse, man. I had to do something. I'm out of town. I'm in New York City for my 16-year anniversary. If I don't get like a celebrity to wish my wife happy anniversary, I was not going home to a happy wife. So that's I still don't know if I made up for that by any means. I don't think she knows who Dana White is, but it helped me to feel a little better.
Somebody said it. But like, and to dive into Fanatics Fest, was it just celebrity after celebrity just walking around?
So it's funny you say that. I literally, maybe like 20 minutes ago, put up a POV video of like about an hour and 30 minutes or so of me walking around the show on Saturday there's a lot of people that were not able to make it to this show, especially because the National was just 2 weeks before. So I wanted to give like a little bit of an experience of what that was like. And I think people are going to be pretty interested to see that, within just the first few minutes of walking in on Saturday, there is just a bum rush into the WWE section. There are all these people gathered around because they'll do these walkouts to, your WWE music. And that was like one of the main centers where you'd see celebrities come out. There was like Ruben and Travis Scott, Jake Paul. You had like LA Knight. You had actual WWE members, but then you just had your random celebrity here and there. You had Gronk. You had Tom Brady. You had social media content. You had Speed and Drewski, people that they're not even of my generation, but I know like they're still super popular. And funny enough, the social media guys are some of the ones that got some of the most love as far as the biggest crowds circling around them. But yeah, it was pretty nonstop. I mean, like you really couldn't stand in one spot and go more than maybe 10, 15 minutes without seeing another crowd of people going by, and you just start to guess who was that.
So I understand, Jesse, you were in Cleveland for the National as well. What's the juxtaposition of those events? You've got the Nationals in its 44th year. We all have our opinions about that show. I've been around it since 2000 in various capacities. Fanatics is taking a big leap with this experience. What is kind of that initial thought of those two events?
I mean, apples and oranges, honestly. It's two different shows and I wouldn't say for two different groups of people, but definitely one is really focused on the card collector, and the other one is focused on the sport fan. Now, we all know that a lot of times that card collector and sport fan, they overlap pretty heavily, right? And there's no difference in what you would see in a national in the sense of the card section of Fanatics Fest. But for the rest of the show, it is an interactive playground for any and all sports lovers, not just of your three main, football, basketball, football here in the U.S., but you had lacrosse, you had soccer, you had women's soccer leagues, you had WNBA as well, you had UFC, you had WWE. Again, WWE just resonates so much because it was honestly one of the most popular segments of the entire show. But, there was just so much to do for the non-collector at Fanatics Fest as opposed to the National, which is still a great time if you're in the card community. If you're not really into cards at all, I don't know if you're having the most fun at the National.
And that's why these two were vastly different. And I know before, nobody knew what to expect with Fanatics Fest. Like, are they coming to take over the world? Are they coming to do this? I think it was a win for the industry, but I think it's a totally different show, like you said. And it's an experience. Not the National's not an experience. It certainly is. But this is a totally different type of experience. And what I think is cool, and probably what's going to push cards, is you see Tom Brady out on the floor, and you see Peyton Manning out, and Grant Williams, and they're all buying cards, and that's what's going to keep people that see that and they're like, well, cards are cool, and that's the National. It's cool to collect, right? So I think there's a lot of parallels with these shows as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned Grant Williams. We were standing right there, and that's what's so crazy. Grant Williams is a professional NBA basketball player. He is a phenom in his own right. However, he's at this thing, and he's got like a handful of people around him. That's just kind of goes to the celebrity that was at this event, because when you have like only a handful of people around Grant Williams, and then you see other crowds of people surrounding, whoever it might be, walking down the aisleway, it really kind of says, it's just Grant Williams in that situation, which is, when do you ever say something like that? But I mean, the video playing right now, we were standing right there moments before he pulled that Luka Doncic out of 10 from National Treasures. He said he's already been offered $500,000 for this card. Oh, and yeah. You see people who have never collected cards, and all of a sudden they see not only one, professional players are collecting cards, but two, there's a chance I pull a $500,000 card. That there are cards that are worth $500,000, let alone just the fact that there's so much celebrity around it. Yeah, I think Fanatics Fest, they obviously have said many times their job was to try and grow the hobby, trying to expand it out with this event. I would be shocked that it didn't do that.
No, I haven't heard anything bad, except for the people's flying home. I heard that's been pretty bad.
Heard that as well. I've heard a couple negatives, and the negatives that I heard, I mentioned this on our Monday podcast. One was the autograph lines. So autograph lines were a little bit, I guess it was maybe not as much management on that side of things. They had hired it out to a third party. I think in the future it might behoove Fanatics to use their own people, put a few more bodies around there. Jalen Brunson was supposedly, I don't think he was like just mad rush, but he was rushed in the sense that I think someone just said, all right, like everybody get in line. And there was already kind of a line formed and, first come, first serve. So people hear, hey, come on and get in line. People are just going to start rushing to that point. And he ended up not signing because there was just too much chaos. So, that could be something that they might want to fix. I also heard the pricing on getting some of those autographs was pretty high. So that might be another factor. And then the only other thing I heard from a few people was the VIP package. It was pretty expensive. It was like around $450, give or take. And now, granted, that gets you into 3 days of the event, but there doesn't appear, at least to a few people, it doesn't appear that there was much in the way of, other little freebies, any, stuff that you typically might find in a VIP package. So, but again, if those are the big problems, right. I mean, we go to the National, and a lot of times the big problem is I sweat through my clothes because it was so hot in there, or I couldn't even look up card prices because there was no internet, or the food was absolutely awful, or there was no food, or there was only one vendor. Like, none of those problems existed at this place. Like, the food was great. Like, I had a bulgogi bowl, a Korean barbecue bowl with kimchi. Like, where do you get that at any other card show? And then the air conditioning I was cold at points. The internet was by far faster than a lot of the homes I'm in. A lot of times, like it was absolutely a lot of A pluses in a lot of categories where they might be subpar at a National.
Yeah, I mean the Javits Center. I mean you kind of expect that kind of stuff there, and I heard him say. I heard Michael Rubin say that they're going to go to L.A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard that as well. I got someone was walking around giving away free slushy cups, and there was like a little QR code in there saying, come visit us at the L.A. Fanatics Fest.
I think that would work if they touched a couple corners throughout the year. This can happen in L.A., New York, Chicago. He can do it 3 times a year.
Yeah. We talked about that on Monday's show too. Mike had mentioned, because Mike wasn't able to go, and he had mentioned how he would love to see this like an East Coast, West Coast thing. And I couldn't agree more, really, because we think about like the people that were able to get to this show, New Yorkers, Northeast people were able to get to the show probably a whole lot easier than someone over, in Washington, Oregon, or something like that. But if you had something East Coast, West Coast, something in LA, something in New York, and then there's supposed to be one down in Florida as well, that's really not a bad setup. I wouldn't mind personally being a Nashville boy myself. I wouldn't mind one middle of the Midwest South area, putting one right around there. That would be pretty nice. But hey, I'll take a little East Coast, West Coast. So.
And now that the National is committed to Chicago for the next 3 years, the rest of the country really does open up for some of these experiences. Jesse, let's talk a little bit of nonsense, or a lot of it of nonsense. We want to talk about your connection with Mike Geo and the show you guys do. Talk about that a little bit, how that program developed and where people can find you with Sports Cards Nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sports Cards Nonsense is the podcast name. It's what we brand a lot of our social media. It is something that Mike and I started. In fact, it's funny you ask to talk about it a little bit, because on Thursday's show, we keep getting this question. We've been doing it for 4 years now, or I guess it was January 2021. So what is that? 3.5, almost 4 years that we got started. We started doing this where Mike had been breaking for a long time, and I was in the finance world for a while, and I saw him making better money than I was in finance selling cards, and I was very curious. That definitely piqued my interest. Tell me more about this. And as the years went on, the success of his business got to the point where it's like, all right, next thing you get into in the card world, like I want to be involved in this. We're best friends from, his wife is my cousin. We hung out all the time. So it was just like when he sold his business, I was in a position where I had a little extra free time doing my corporate gig. And he said he wanted to start a podcast. And I said I could help out. But at first I was just on the back end, just helping out, helping the audio get uploaded, a few edits here and there. And I started posting stuff on social media for it. And we were posting, 30-second clips on TikTok. I'd never even been on TikTok until for the business. And within the first maybe 2 to 3 months of posting on TikTok, one of the guys over at the Ringer Podcast Network, which is owned by Bill Simmons, one of their guys found it, said, Bill, I think this could be something that would work with our program. And next thing you know, we're getting guys from Bill Simmons' office reaching out, asking for a call. We honestly thought it was fake at first. We kind of delayed in responding because we didn't think it was real. And then finding out it was, and next thing you know, we're getting paid to do a podcast, and within the next year I had quit my corporate gig, and I was, I started collecting as a kid, and then I gave it up when a kid ripped me off for my Jordan collection because he told me wild card college cards were going to be the next thing. So I traded him all my Jordans, and after I found out it was garbage, I was like, I'm done collecting. That was 3rd grade. And then, I dabbled in high school a little bit, but then, this was kind of been my coming back into the hobby, which has been great for our podcast because a lot of listeners are in the same boat. A lot of listeners are just kind of getting back in. So I ask, it's been a real learning experience for me to get back into it, ask questions that a lot of new guys have wanted to know, and trying to, make it more accessible, not just to the guys who know so much about it, who've been doing it for years like Mike has. So that's kind of the whole progression of the podcast. And, I think the one thing people enjoy the most is banter. We talk nonsense. It's not always about cards. Sometimes it's about, why did you, go to this thing over the weekend and make a fool of yourself by dancing and breaking your I've done so many things that I embarrass myself at. He loves to point those out for the public, and I don't seem to stop him. So yeah, it's just a couple of buddies talking about cards, really is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Now, the amount of people that listen to the podcast, I follow the Facebook group that's got, I don't know, I just looked it up just to make sure, over 200,000 people in that Facebook group. And I mean, that's nonsense in its own right. But
it's crazy.
Yeah. And some of the posts on there are, again, nonsense. We could say it all day, but
that's why it's an appropriate term,
No, it is. It's terrific. Yeah, it's absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you guys run that page too, like all day and have to? I mean, that's
so we're very fortunate in the sense that we've got an absolutely amazing admin team that will do most of the day-to-day. I would say 99% of the day-to-day is run by 3 guys majorly on the sports cards nonsense side. And then those guys and a few others, we've now started a non-sports cards nonsense group that has already grown up over 20,000 over the last couple months, which has been amazing too to see that growth. But those guys and a handful of other supporters have been instrumental in making that group, as enjoyable of a place as it can be. You get 200,000 members in there, and inevitably you're going to start getting guys saying or doing something that you're not going to be okay with. So we got to do a lot of cleanup. So keeping an eye on the posts, keeping an eye on comments, making sure nobody gets too upset about, their piece of cardboard versus someone else's piece of cardboard. At the end of the day, we try and remind guys, this is still supposed to be enjoyable, but for the most part, we think it's a great place to educate yourself and also just see what else is out there, see the content, see the cards. A lot of guys, thank us so much because they didn't even know a certain set existed or that there were other cards like the ones that they needed. So yeah, it's a cool thing to see it grow to what it's gotten to.
So there's there's nonsense and there's nonsense. So
it's nonsense within nonsense. It's inceptioning each other.
Yes. What is the most nonsensical thing that you've experienced on the show?
On the show? I mean,
what defines nonsense in the sports cards world?
Wow, now we're really getting inceptioned. I mean, what defines nonsense to me is something shocking or surprising that I would not have seen coming at this point. Because literally, like, it used to be, when we first started out, it used to be that, $1 million bounty on a card was nonsense, but now that's becoming more and more commonplace. You're seeing, especially since we did the podcast through 2021 and 2022, we saw all those kinds of prices. But even the fact today, we see those bounties are at least once a month, if not more often, are we seeing things like that. Nowadays, it's seeing some of the people come into the space. The fact that we got to interview Ruben and Mike Mahan from Fanatics last month at National, I mean, that was nonsense. And a lot of it, like, how is that something that I'm doing? I never thought that was going to be part of my resume going into my 30s as a kid. And then Bobby Bones, now becoming more of a friend of the show. He's a celebrity in his own right by far. He's got a nationalized radio show that people hear all across the world. He's on American Idol. And now he's like inviting me up to join him on his podcast at Fanatics Fest. He comes over and hangs out with us. He offered me a ride on his private jet to go home the other day. I'm just like, what? This is all from cards? Like, this is all coming from the card world? Grant Williams just pulled a $500,000 card right in front of my eyes. Like, these things are amazing, but at the end of the day, that's nonsense.
It's nonsense.
Yeah. And now we have Travis Scott with cards, right? And
right.
Throwing those out into the crowd
Dude, don't even get me started on Travis Scott, man. That guy can pull a crowd of anybody at that show. Travis Scott, so we had a guy, his name's Noah. He's been like kind of the latest intern. We've been very fortunate to have some pretty great interns at SCN over the years. And we try and do right by him. One of them works at Topps. One of them works over at PSA now. And this new guy, I'm afraid we're going to lose him to Fanatics before too long. But he's down at the Travis Scott Theater Room experience at Fanatics Fest. And he's telling me, like, hey, they're about to cancel this thing because the crowd is so wild. Like, there are people getting up on chairs and yelling, like, if you don't stop moving, stop cramming towards the gate, we're canceling this thing altogether. And fortunately, after a while, they finally get the crowd calm enough to where they let them in. And once they're in there, they lock the doors because they're like afraid of more people trying to get in, because then Travis does a 2-song concert at the end of this interview thing. It was just like blowing my mind, the fact that all these things are happening. And then, yeah, his crowds were unlike anything else when you walked around the show.
And he's not even a sports guy.
And he's not even a sports guy, right? Yeah,
right.
But that's the thing. There were so many. Again, it goes back to the genius of Ruben and the Fanatics marketing team. There was so much question of like, are there going to be a big crowd? Is there going to be a lot of people at this thing? We just had the National. People were spreading rumors that, ticket sales weren't great. And I mean, I heard there were 70,000 people at this thing. Right. I can tell you, I don't know what they were expecting, but that number will never be smaller than this year, because every day it seemed like there was more and more people there, and they wanted to be like, catch a glimpse, catch a picture with somebody here or there. And the fact that Travis Scott is not into cards, but the young people there are into him, that those kids are now card fans, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and I see. So First Take was live doing their show there on Friday. Did any of those guys, was like Stephen A. Smith walking around?
Oh, well, Stephen A. Smith, like when I first walked in on Friday, like again, the nonsense. Bobby Bones calls me up to do his podcasts, like I'm just walking in and he sees me, calls me over to do that for like 15 minutes. Yes, I'm name dropping because I thought it was absolutely amazing. I'm still starstruck by it. I think it's so cool. But I get off the stage, and our intern Noah meets me over there. And he's like, "All right." I'm like, "Where do we go?" Because he's been there for a little bit. He's like, "Well, let's just take a few steps this way." And I take a few steps, and it's Stephen A. Smith doing live ESPN show right there on the stage of Fanatics. They're panning to the crowd. I'm pretty sure I was on ESPN for a minute or two. And like, while that's happening, like Noah's tapping me on the shoulder. I turn around and like, there's just this long line of like bounty cop, like police officers, following behind, Ruben and Robert Kraft, just like rushing through the crowd. So it's like, I got Stephen A. Smith up on stage with ESPN in front of me. I've got Ruben and Kraft, some billionaires walking behind me, and then the crowds were just nonstop. And that's all happening while I'm pretty sure Boncaro and I think it was Jalen Brunson, but I cannot be sure. That's how crazy it is. Like, I can have some of the biggest stars in the NBA standing only a few feet away from me, and it doesn't even register because of all of the other things going around. So yeah, it was kind of hard to really, it's still like to this moment days later, I'm still kind of like wrapping my head around what happened.
And like you said, that's the smallest it's ever going to be. And that's probably the least amount of celebrities that it's ever going to be, because everybody's going to say, and whether or not they're up on stage doing, the Durant and the Anthony Edwards, but there's going to be a lot of Grant Hills or Grant Williams, Grant Hill too maybe, but Grant Williams coming to these shows because they just want to be a part of it.
Oh, for sure. That's the thing. I mean, not only are you being a part of it in the sense that you have how many news outlets are covering these stories now. Bleacher Report, they have got 22 million followers on Instagram. They reached out to us yesterday to grab one of the videos that I took of Tom Brady and Stephen A. Smith on stage, where Tom Brady's talking about his top 5 favorite 2024 quarterbacks. They're going to want to be not only in the media's content, but they want to get in Ruben's good side. They want to be invited to the white party. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that these guys, these celebrities, they were not paid to be there. I think this was Ruben makes a phone call, says, "Hey, buddy, I'm doing this thing. Can you pop in for a little bit?" And when Ruben does it, it's not like where you're coming to an event and you're just a paid celebrity to be there, where you sit, you do what you're told, and then you leave. These guys are coming, and they're not only doing what Ruben asked of them to do, an interview or something like that, but then they're going around and hanging out. They're playing games. Gronkowski's running the 40 with a bunch of kids, or they're playing, pass football throughout the auditorium. Like, just crazy stuff happens, and I can't imagine you don't want to. There's these celebrities that weren't there that won't want to be at the next one to, earn his good graces.
And that's why in LA, LeBron's going to be there, right?
I mean, come on, it's LA, right? Like, if that's what happened in New York, like, who's going to be at the LA show? And, I'm a big non-sport card collector, right? Like, I love the Pop Century stuff. I love the new Star Wars Top Chrome stuff that came out. I am really into that side of the hobby. And so to be able to go to like an LA show where you've got like Academy Award winners coming down, or like more comedians like Kevin Hart and Ben Stiller that were at this one, but like times 10 because you're at LA and you're in their backyard. I actually am kind of curious if they can outdo themselves. They may just be able to.
Well, I wouldn't put anything past Michael.
No. Yeah, I've quit underestimating him at this point. And that's the thing. Like, people are like, "Oh, kiss up. You can't say anything bad about him because you're afraid that whatever." It's just like, no. Like, I all I can say is what I've experienced, right? And I've experienced that Ruben / Fanatics, the team that are behind all this, they are doing things that are either benefiting the majority of those in the hobby, or when there's a problem, when there's an issue, they seem to listen. Or even before the issue comes up, they're asking questions. What can we do better next time? What would make your experience more enjoyable? Like, these are things that I think a lot of companies in the hobby, they just kind of took for granted. They knew, like, hey, we are the end all be all. We don't have to worry about, our customer service. We have worked with SGC for so long, not because they're the biggest grader out there, but because they are one of the best companies to work with. Their customer service has been so on point throughout the years. And I always liken it back to that. Like, where's a company where I can pick up the phone and talk to someone and they will actually respond and try and make it right away, to the point where a CEO will respond? That's Fanatics. Like, that's the only company where I'm seeing people actively doing what they need to, even before the problem arises.
Real quick, before we let you go, we haven't even touched on the card show part of Fanatics Fest.
I know. Yeah. That's what's crazy.
And right. Like, how was that? I mean, did you walk around and it was a traditional card show, and I saw that a lot of the tables, because they provided the showcases and they made it look uniform, which is great. Did you see a lot of interaction on the floor of the card show part?
Yeah, so I pulled Doug Caskey. He works with Mojo Breaks. I pulled him up for the live podcast we did from the show on Friday, and I wanted to talk to him a little bit more, both on the record and off, just to get an idea for, what has your experience been? Because not only does he do a podcast himself, but they run a card shop and they break and all that stuff. So it's like, all right, you should be able to tell me the experience of the card collector over here. And I asked a few others, and I found the story is the same. It's very unison throughout. Friday morning was a little bit slower, and that was kind of what I experienced being inside of the event. The traffic was a little less, but by Friday afternoon, there was pretty constant traffic throughout the card side of the event. Again, it was about a third of the total space of the show was dedicated to card tables. And for that section of it, it was, I would say, about as steady of traffic as you would see at a national, of just people constantly walking by, looking at your cards. I asked him even, okay, so there's traffic, but are there sales to go along with it? He said, yeah, we are seeing some pretty decent sales as well. I wouldn't say necessarily maybe as good as the national, but there's also a kind of a reason for that, and that's that they're not able to bring as much stuff there. I talked about this too in a little more detail on our Monday podcast, but they are very unionized in New York, and that includes all those people that are setting up at the show, as far as like who are bringing in the pallets to set up at your tables, and they are not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. And guys were trying to get stuff in, and the prices that they were quoting, they were just like, no, if I do that, I'm losing money at the show. Pretty much you could almost sell out and you'd still almost lose money in some sense. So the fact that they couldn't get in as much wax as they wanted, they couldn't get in as many boxes of cards that they wanted, I think that kind of limited some in some respect, but that didn't stop. Everyone was buying cards, and a lot of people were buying expensive cards.
Yeah, that's what somebody told me. Actually, two people said they couldn't bring their lower end stuff because it just wasn't cost effective. Like, if I would have had my $10 boxes, I would have done, $20,000 out of those, because people wanted that, but nobody had it.
No, that's the thing. You didn't see a single dollar box, really. I didn't see a single dollar box. At the National, there were sections where guys would have chairs with tables with boxes upon boxes where guys could just kind of plant themselves and rifle through finding whatever they needed. This is not the show for that. And it may be that another Fanatics Fest in another city, maybe it's more favorable to do something like that. But the table space that you got and the cost to bring it in, just were not favorable for the card collector in that sense.
Yeah, but maybe
Well,
that's
Jesse, we
what
know you
this
got to
show is
run.
gonna be.
We really, really appreciate your time tonight. Let everybody know before you jump off where we can find all of this nonsense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sports Cards Nonsense, the podcast, you can really listen to it anywhere. Since Spotify pays the bills, listen to it on there. It's free anyway, but you can listen anywhere you'd like. We have the website, Sports Cards Nonsense. We've got merch on there. I've got my first card that I may or may not have made myself. I'm not saying. You can go to our Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook group. The Facebook group, like we mentioned, is absolutely gigantic. I have my own personal, my nickname on the show is Sports Boy. You can follow me at the Sports Boy on Instagram as well. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much it. If you like cards, you like a little bit of banter and nonsense, I think we'll get along just fine.
We enjoy it, Jesse. We enjoy it. So we do really appreciate you taking the time, joining us, and we will catch up again soon. I will be in Nashville in October, so we'll see you there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we'll see you at the National,
That's right.
Unofficial National.
Thanks a lot. I love that show.
It is a good one.
We'll see you down there.
All right.
Cool.
Jeremy, Greenie, thank you guys.
Thanks.
All right, Jesse, keep up the nonsense. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
So we announced last week and shared again tonight. Alex is moving over to Whatnot on Tuesday night, or at least tonight. Again, we're not abandoning eBay, but we encourage everybody to head over to Whatnot and check out the auction. We're going to get our feet wet over there, and we're going to go ahead and welcome Alex in at this point and say good evening.
What's up, everybody? How we doing?
Oh,
Now it's better. How you doing?
much better. What's
Not too much.
Yeah.
man. We're getting pretty pumped.
Yeah, we're
Lot to
gonna
learn.
take our shot at our own nonsense and hit up the Whatnot for a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be different. If you guys have had the opportunity to see the lives, hopefully everybody here has. It's pretty fun. Here, we're going to try out a few new things. I have some ideas on how we want to do it. Bring new cards to the table weekly. Have packs, as always. A lot of the same stuff you already like. It's going to be fun, Joe. I appreciate that, brother. I hope you're there. We'll be down at 9 o'clock. We'll start. We'll do a couple giveaways, some freebie stuff, get people going. If I'm not giving one of these away to open up the show, I don't know what's a better way to start Whatnot career.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Now that we
Yeah,
have it,
might
it's
as
what I've been
well.
asking for the hardest time. As well as now we're not just going to be able to do $2 auctions or whatever. We can bring some cooler stuff to the table. We have a little bit more options. We have more like a virtual buy it now table, which you didn't have before. So where before sometimes, it's always tough. You got to guess. I don't know how often we can bring out Caleb Williams autos out of 50. We could do AR autos, Anthony Richardson autos right before the season. Corbin Carroll, some of the hotter stuff on the market. We can go bring that out to you guys and still bring you, whoops, that's from me stepping on the cord. Still bring you all the same cool stuff that you guys really like. Be more of a hybrid between some of the stuff you've seen before and some of the stuff you haven't. So I don't know. I think it's going to be definitely a learning curve tonight. We're checking out some of the tech to bring in the same features that you guys like to see visually over to a platform like that, which we have not seen before in as high of a capacity. And right now it's this stream and I've got some ideas and we're going to keep evolving it. So everybody that's already been a fan of the show, get in there, talk to me. It's probably going to be maybe in 2 hours. We usually do about 2 hours. So, but it's the night owls over there, Whatnot. So,
It is,
it
and
could go crazy.
I think that's kind of what we talked about and kind of one of the decisions we made. Well, this show, we'd love to do it from 7 to 8, but to keep people's attention all the way, we'll give them a little break. So now there'll be a little break. People can go, at 8 o'clock and put the kids to bed or grab something to eat or do what they got to do. And then they can come back at 9 o'clock and finish the night off with Whatnot.
That's what I do. I got a little one. I got to put him down too. And he doesn't want to go to bed at 7:45. He doesn't want to go to bed.
Alex,
at 9,
are you going to run similar to eBay where all auctions start at $2 and we'll combine shipping and kind of all that deal?
Auctions, yes. But there will be some cards that will have buy it now opportunities, which we don't really have the functionality for before.
Yeah. So there are cards already listed in the buy it now that you don't have. We actually have those in the office.
Oh, okay.
So and we'll figure that out, and it's going to be a learning curve with everything. But eventually, hopefully through Mascot, our entire inventory is going to be in Whatnot, our entire eBay inventory. So
Yeah.
it should all be intertwined at some point, some way, somehow, that the interwebs allow us to do that. But yeah. And so I also have it set up. So it should be the same. The shipping will be $4.99. Somebody told me we couldn't do that, but I figured out that we can do that. So I put in there, if they win 100 cards, you'll be able to ship them all at once. So however many they win. And
way better.
It's a learning curve that we'll have. I mean, it's the first time we've all been on Whatnot, but 6 months ago, 8 months ago, it was the first time we did eBay. So
oh yeah. And we're going to do, and this first show compared to that first show is going to blow it out of the water, honestly, just in terms of what we've even learned in the live stream platform.
Yeah.
It's a different market, different audience. So they're going to want different things. But I mean, still at the end of the day, it's sports cards. We want to bring cool stuff each week. We want to bring you stuff you can't get at other places. We want to have fun, unique opportunities to talk and just make it cool. So I hope everybody that's been supporting us continues to do so at Whatnot. I don't see why you wouldn't. You already got it on your phone. Guarantee it.
That's right.
So Jay, if you're just like me, so I think it'll be pretty cool. And we got plenty of stuff. I'm still sorting through everything. It's going to be pretty awesome to go with our current inventory. We definitely have a big expansion of some other stuff and even more, not just football, basketball, baseball, some non-sports and some stuff that's really going to be unique.
Yeah, very cool. We have the links that I'll post again, the links
Please.
that people can join our stream on Whatnot and whatnot, right? Because that's what it is. Nonsense, Jeremy.
This thing was a monster. Out of 49, Devon Achane. Got to practice with my fantasy drafts. I got to get my people out here. Help me out. Keep stepping on this court. I got to move that thing tonight, boys, so you don't get motion sickness when out there. I just jumped in at the end. But yeah, it's really cool. The stuff we got right now is really awesome. Some hot stuff, a lot of football. Can't stop. I'm excited.
Good deal. We will. We'll see you in about an hour.
I'll be there, boys. I'll see you all there, and I hope you see me at Whatnot. Peace out.
Yep.
Thanks, Alex.
So there you have it, Jeremy. That's what we're going to start. And like we were saying, or I said it. So the Whatnot experience is a little bit different than the eBay Live. While everything was still on a buy it now, you actually had to leave the stream on eBay and go look at our store. I don't know how many cards I've loaded up, just 20, 30, something like that. I've loaded up. So people can at least have something to see, and it'll be on the left side of the screen while they're watching Alex do the auctions. They'll still have the ability to scroll up and down what we have for buy it nows. And, as we progress and hopefully, we'll get hundreds, if not thousands of items up that they can scroll up and down. I can tell you that they can get a Destiny Leo card, Hannah Hidalgo and Reagan Bass, like all those are on there very easily. But not only that, I mean, I think there's a card up there for over $2,000. So, I mean, there's cards that are $10 up to $2,000 that they'll be able to see on our Whatnot. They call it a Whatnot marketplace, by the way.
Yeah, it's going to be very cool as we continue to evolve this. It's all starting to come together between the Whatnot integration, the Mascot integration, and what we're doing here on the live broadcast. Like you said, we figured it out 6 months ago with eBay. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve here with Whatnot, but we appreciate everybody sticking with us. And Alex has really built up a group of regulars that check out the eBay. I expect more of the same on Whatnot and maybe even a bigger platform.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, tonight, I don't have any expectations. Some people will log in and, Alex will run auctions accordingly. And, we'll see. It's the whole Nick Gilbert thing, right? What's not to like? If they log on and they watch, they will like it because Alex does a terrific job.
It's going to be very cool. Well, it's a pleasure as always getting to do this with you every Tuesday night. We want to thank Tyler Danburg, who joined us out at the National. Of course, Curtis, we got to talk to him and ran that interview a couple weeks ago. And Rick Danburg, their grandfather, Tyler's grandfather, joined us as part of that conversation. And then Jesse Gibson from Sports Cards Nonsense. We appreciate him and Mike Gio, their support, and Alex joining us as well. So reminder, head over to Whatnot. Look for what's the name? Greenie Sports Cards over on Whatnot?
That's it. Greenie Sports Cards.
All right. Easy enough. We'll find Greenie Sports Cards over on Whatnot. Going to be really cool. Check it out. Whatnot tonight, 9 o'clock. Join Alex over there. And as always, Greenie, this is it's a pleasure getting to do this with you and continuing to see this thing evolve.
Yeah, I mean, there is no shortage of content, cards, and the ability to do these shows and bring these to life. And yeah, I enjoy it as well.
Sounds good. So reminder, Medina County Collectors Fair coming up at the end of September 27, 28, and 29th. That trade night will be on the 27th. And check us out every Tuesday night. Same great time, same great channel, 7 to 8. We'll run Greenie Sports Cards live. Alex will be on eBay on Thursdays, and then check him out on Whatnot tonight. Greenie, we will we'll check you later.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Haley.
There you go, Greenie.